My name is Tess, and this is a proposal for the Illicit Drug Anti-Proliferation Act revision. To start on the same page, a rave is defined as a dance party at a public or private venue that features a DJ usually playing electronic dance music. By 2003, ecstasy was the fastest growing drug in America, particularly at raves and clubs. In concordance with the war on drugs, the government was inclined to restrict its use by targeting event holders. The Anti-Drug Proliferation Act was first proposed as a standalone bill called Reducing Americans' Vulnerability to Ecstasy, or RAVE Act. The bill failed due to public outcry from the dance music community. The amendment, unchanged, was passed as an attachment to the Amber Alert bill as part of the PROTECT Act, which quietly avoided public resistance. The current law 226 amended the Controlled Substance Section 416A on maintaining drug-involved premises. The original U.S. Code made it illegal to open or maintain any place involving controlled substances. The amendment expanded this to include open, lease, rent, use, or maintain any place, whether permanently or temporarily. The amendment also added another category of perpetrators who manage or control any place, whether permanently or temporarily, either as an owner, leasee, agent, employee, occupant, or mortgagee, and knowingly or intentionally rents, leases, profits from, or makes available for use, with or without compensation, the place for the purpose of unlawful manufacturing, storing, distributing, or use of controlled substances. Moving forward, I'll refer to this long list of stakeholders as event holders. Lastly, the language for evidence for prosecution changed from beyond a reasonable doubt standard to any preponderance of evidence. So in short, under this amendment, it made it illegal for anyone within the space to possess drugs. This included attendees bringing controlled substances in on their own terms, but the ultimate penalty would go to the event holder. So any event holder can be penalized and imprisoned if they simply fail to prevent drug-related activities on their premises. In addition, concrete evidence was no longer needed to subject event holders to punishment. Monetarily, the law added to the CSA higher penalties to Section D. This means event holders can be fined up to $250,000 for violations. The bill also created Section 6, which added $5.9 million to the DEA's budget to hire special agents to serve as DRCs, demand reduction coordinators, in each state. The DEA got an additional unspecified sum to educate the public about club drugs. This shifted funding towards preventing the public from attending raves and doing drugs. So you may ask, what is the DEA's education today? On their website, they describe, in 1994, the National Drug Strategy was revised to reflect these three issues of current importance to DEA and its DRCs. 1, responding to the 3-year upward tick in adolescent experimentation with the use of illegal drugs. 2, presenting arguments against drug legalization. And 3, continuing support for the established drug abuse resistance education program. Now, it's clear that their 30-year education efforts have failed to prevent Americans from experimenting with drugs illegally. The act intended to address a rising number of drug incidents at illicit drug venues by shutting down illegitimate venues that encouraged the use of illicit drugs. In effect, this goal was met. However, the amendment proved unnecessarily strict and has damaged rave culture. Legitimate event holders are discouraged from enacting safety measures to protect their patrons. Fearful event holders cease offering medical services, drug education, drug testing, drug rehabilitation spaces, and even distributing of free water at their events to discourage drug use. For patrons, this only creates a more dangerous environment to take drugs in. An increase in avoidable drug-related deaths has risen as a result. One example is Shelley Goldsmith, who died from heat stroke at a rave. Her mother has started the Amend the Rave Act campaign to raise awareness. Now, the desired change of this law include redistributing funds from the DEA's DRC budget to create a national network for drug data collection and re-education. And 2, provide penalty waivers for events that host verified harm reduction and drug education programs on site. Now, the European Union has a decentralized organization called the European Monitoring Center for Drugs and Drug Addiction, EMCDDA. Established in 1995, the center collects scientific data, consults drug policymakers, develops harm reduction and drug education programs, and tracks current drug threats. Such information can be found in the European Drug Report 2023, as shown here. Now, the EMCDDA is a flexible network that successfully implements evidence-based approaches to harm reduction and drug education. The United States can develop a similar center called the Monitoring Center for Drug and Drug Addiction under SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Here's an infographic from EMCDDA that tracks harm reduction implementation. As of now, SAMHSA's goal is to prevent substance use and overdose. Shifting this focus towards studying substance use and education, like the EMCDDA does, has the potential to reduce drug harm at raves and inform future policies. This new MCDDA does not have to reinvent the wheel with drug re-education. Various US-based nonprofits have currently refined education and harm reduction techniques that can be widely implemented. The Zendo project is one example that provides a safe space called a chill-out tent for those undergoing bad trips to avoid harmful interactions with law enforcement. They also provide community-led education materials like this manual. And DanceSafe is another nonprofit that offers test kits and drug education fact sheets. Hosting these harm reduction and education initiatives at events should merit a waiver for the law's penalties. Government support for such organization would also encourage research and development for drug safety. Now, a potential loophole for this revised law would be for event hold spaces to provide the bare minimum harm reduction and education services to obtain that penalty waiver. This danger could be mitigated by requiring drug support that meets the MCDDA defined standard. And with the creation of the US's new MCDDA, it will create new job marketplace. The demand reduction coordinator of the DEA could reorient their efforts to lead this new center. Nonprofits focused on harm reduction and education should receive funding and support for their historic work. And event holders will be allowed to implement drug education and harm reduction efforts at their events without fear of punishment. And most importantly, event attendees will be educated on recent scientifically verified information on drugs and be able to test for their drug purity on site. Attendees will also have harm reduction support at their disposal if needed, including chill-out tents, medical services, and of course, free water. Now, the revised law should recognize the use of drugs as inevitable and support education and harm reduction efforts taken by event holders. Eliminating punishment for such drug support can prevent drug-related harm and even deaths. Changing our approach from drug prevention to drug education will allow the US to become a leading innovator for the world. And here are my sources. Thank you.